Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to an episode of Nuggets News. We're back with Michael, head of all our written research, pumping out that alpha daily on the platform. And Michael, another interesting news week. There's so much happening in the world of overlap between TradFi and DeFi and crypto and stablecoin CBDC. So yeah, plenty to jump into again today.
Yeah, like I spend, you know, like 8 to 10 hours a day, like just looking at the markets and looking at news. And like I've got obviously a team here that we operate out of Bali, but a team of researchers. But like we spend, so much more time now having to cover like full macro finance and traditional markets, which is like I got into, this type of space from blockchain. And so it's like we start going through this process of like full TradFi research now, just because it's all connected.
Absolutely, and we're starting to see some of those sectors perform the best. Real world assets and all this talk about who's going to dominate the stablecoin space. So yeah, let's get into all this news.
All right, well let's share screen. So I think the main thing, obviously, looking at now is that we've had now, I think, four attempts from both Bitcoin and ETH to kind of tap that like breakout line. And at the moment, we haven't gotten the breakout line. If I can just move that screen. Um, yeah, we haven't quite gotten the breakout yet. And so the question is, especially after watching your video with Philip just from the other day, like, are we going to get a bit of a pullback here, just like a little bit of a drawdown, which I think would be fairly healthy. It would probably prolong our bull market if we did. Like if maybe ETH goes down to like a 30, 100, and Bitcoin maybe goes back down to like a 105 or something like that. But no one knows, but it keeps tapping that resistance line and it's been rejected 3 or 4 times. Um, Either we're going to get a breakout and we're going to rip and ETH's going to go to 5K and Bitcoin 130, or we'll probably get a bit of a pullback and then it will go. So time will tell.
Yeah, but like Philip said, longer term, all those metrics in our cheat sheet are still looking healthy from the macro tailwind point of view. But yeah, we've had a pretty good run. You've got to remember from 16K to 123K Bitcoin.
Yep. And this is the thing, like, look, we've always said to people that we have when we have like in-person events over here, is that none of these markets are ever the same. And anyone who like, I'm not a fan of like laying over this market's chart versus last bull market's chart versus the 17. Like 17, 21, and 25 have all been actually really different. And while they might have similarities. Like, look how different this cycle has been. It's like meme coins and Bitcoin, everything else has been left behind. We've had a very small window of Sol doing really well and ETH doing really well only just recently, still not breaking an all-time high. No one really can compare last cycles to this cycle. So it's just always, you always need to have your finger on the eject button still, but we still look good.
Absolutely cool.
So some pretty interesting news this week. So BlackRock's chief crypto guy has just jumped over to go now work at SharpLink Gaming with Joe Lubin. So this is now the Michael Saylor of Ethereum company, SharpLink Gaming or SBET. That's trying to do exactly the Michael Saylor strategy, except with ETH, has now taken, BlackRock's main guy. So I think this, is a pretty big power move. It shows that what they're trying to do here at SBET, SharpLink Gaming, is going to be substantial. And I think that this is only bullish, especially in the short term for Ethereum, as they start to really try and slurp up as much like ETH as they possibly can.
Yeah, so this is obviously one of those things that's good for price go up, but in terms of decentralization, and we talk about BlackRock hoovering up all the Bitcoin and ETH, and what that means for censorship resistance longer term. And we set out to build anti-government, and now the biggest corporations in the world own the majority of it. So all these things we've got to keep in mind, and we might touch on what that means for the future at the end as well.
Yeah, I did see the podcast with the Bankless guys about the Ether machine. And these guys are kind of like another TradFi type sort of entity, but they did have a slightly different approach where they're not just trying to gobble up as much ETH as they can, but they actually want to stake, restake, use it in DeFi, like kind of actually like use it for what it's intended, not just like a treasury reserve asset. So I think more like purists in the space, I think is more positive, especially with the corporatization and like the Wall Streetification of these assets, which is kind of concerning for people who are freedom fighters, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've had a couple of like really, really interesting plays this week, which I just wanted to go through some of them. Um, So what I think is a very interesting play here is when we're looking at the peaks of market cap. Like I've seen some outlandish calls lately, like about how we're going to like 12 trillion market cap and all sorts of stuff like this. Like I think everyone just needs to like just like Philip said it best the other day, like the 10x days are probably over. And everyone needs to recalibrate their mind that we're looking for things like like a 1x, like sorry, a 2x. You want if you can double your money in a space, that is outrageous. But some of the moves that we've got going on now, like from things like Athena, like these are the guys now who are going to be really starting to power the next wave of DeFi. And when you look at some of these plays that we've got going on here, so like these are different protocols here that are being built with just huge amounts of money that are just being thrown onto the Ethereum layer, and it's almost like the full like hijacking of the financial system that instead of being usurped by Ethereum, TradFi just wants to absolutely build their full infrastructure on top of Ethereum so that if the wave takes off, they're completely on the ride. And so, like you said, it's really good for number go up. And I'm almost thinking it's like a guaranteed bet right now that you could, do very well in Ethereum. Like not you're not going to 10x, but you're going to outperform the stock market like quite easily because all of these guys are just flooding it with money and infrastructure and rails and all sorts of stuff for their own products.
Trying to scale the base layer and being able to do more, yeah, more flexibility on the base layer and all that type of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so I thought this was very interesting as well. Like the White House now, like, they've kind of had this initial sort of like crypto adoption period. But where this goes now, like, and where the appetite is for, like, how deep are they going to go into this? How deep are they going to go into AI? How deep are they going to go into blockchain? And so I think now there's only like a few little pillars that of things that Trump has promised that actually hasn't happened yet. Like the Bitcoin Treasury Reserve was probably one that still hasn't actually eventuated yet. But as far as like regulatory wise, I think most of those bills are all passed or are passing. And so where they go now from an AI perspective, we've always kind of thought that AI and crypto would merge together and that AIs are going to be paying each other in crypto. It kind of gets pretty scary and pretty dystopian. Like, and it's kind of a very hard balancing act to think how deep do I want to get into this rabbit hole to benefit financially, but then at what point do I start losing freedoms? And so there's like a really hard balancing act that everyone needs to pay attention to right here because these technologies are fantastic to use and we're all using the chatbots and we all love using DeFi apps. But yeah, the more that they get commandeered, the more like they become a problem.
Well, I think we're already starting to see it with the rhetoric around, we have to compete with China, and it's just they're going to go full on, and they've even made those laws where not even states can ban anything that's going to stop, AI flourishing. And they say flourishing, but they basically mean taking over and having an AI run government, AI run, military, police, digital ID, all that type of stuff. So I know one thing I've said in the past is that decentralized AIs can't really compete with all these huge big tech giants that scrape all the data. But I'm starting to wonder if there's a way to kind of plug into that. And what we're seeing now is the demand for AIs that have stripped back the censorship and are actually telling us the truth, not the narrative that. And a lot of the time, it's the narrative that's been trained for 30 years by the mainstream media. That's all these data sets are coming from. So I'm wondering if that's maybe a new tailwind for some decentralized AI projects to go that we're going to actually tell you what's going on without the censorship kind of angle.
And there are some really great projects around that space that are using compute from like decentralized sources, and that the LLM model is kind of going to be decentralized or the ownership of it at least. It gets pretty freaky when you get like we all know who the players are that have founded these protocols. That almost like you almost want to be careful to not speak out against them now because it's like who's listening to what and what's being recorded on the internet about your dissenting voices.
Yes.
So like having these decentralized models is going to be positive, and these are the types of things, as far as like an altcoin perspective, that you want to be supporting because not from a financial gain perspective, but again to preserve freedoms using the technology.
Yeah. I mean, the same with VPNs, like, decentralized
Yeah,
VPNs with everything that's happening now in Australia and the UK and everywhere, really.
it'd probably be a good episode to do to actually talk about like what tools are out there that we could all use, like decentralized VPNs, decentralized like internet like mesh networks. Like I know that Helium was trying to do something like that back in the day, but they kind of got distracted. So it'd be good. It'd be a good episode to have, I think, about looking at some of these projects, not as investments, but as tools that we could all use.
Yeah.
All right. So I've been talking a little bit about Monad as we go back to full blown like financial investing and trying to make money. Monad is the one that I've been chatting about for quite some time. I pay quite close attention to them. Um, I do like the people that are involved in this project. So for those that don't know, this is just an EVM, like another EVM chain that has just like ramped up the TPS and the speed and the throughput like out of its eyeballs. So this is again not launched yet, but they have been in testnet for a couple of weeks now, and they've been in audit. Sorry, a couple of months, and they've been in audit for a couple of weeks. So this is imminently about to launch. I do think that this is probably going to be a top 50, top 20, maybe even top 10 project on launch because it's so well funded. But I do feel like that a lot of the team behind this do have like the ethos that I mean, I'm looking for that, decentralization is key. Kobe on X, he's like one of the main dudes behind this, and he's always been very like decentralization, maxi type sort of focus. So I'm paying quite attention to this because this is still coming.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So Kraken, again, looking to IPO again, crypto companies heading to the stock market because it's where they've all reached market caps and valuations now where to get more money, they almost have to go to Wall Street. So 15 bill valuation, looking to raise 500 million. This is also coming. This is going to make the plumbing behind crypto better, but again, they get taken over by, Wall Street.
Interesting though that Kraken have talked about doing their own layer two. I think it was Ink and their own
Inc.
token, and they're going to do a stock raise. So
Yeah.
how do you deliver value from fees and everything to token holder? Like I'm worried if I'm a token holder and they're going to look after shareholders and IPO kind of thing. So I don't know if all three can work out.
Well, I think everyone's always thought that Coinbase will do the same eventually because Coin is the ticker for the stock. But how long before there's a base token? Like, I mean, if they follow the pump fund method, the second that maybe like revenues look like they're going to drop or they might be losing market share, I wouldn't be surprised to see a base token. So you got Coin as the stock and base as the token, and then have to figure out what the revenue split is there. Or
Yeah.
there is no revenue and it's just like the OP token, or the uni token, which doesn't generate any revenues. It just gives you some sort of governance voice.
Mm.
Um, that happens a lot, and people trade them like their investment and revenue, dividend producing stocks, but they're not. They provide nothing besides a governance
Yeah.
voice.
Every,
Um,
every altcoin is a meme kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Solana's trying to push back here because that was always the Solana narrative that they wanted to be the Nasdaq of blockchain, and we've seen that that's maybe not eventuating the way that they had planned with a lot of these rails going on ETH L2s. But they're trying to push back here, and I do think that they will gain market share and gain traction here. Um, how high Sol goes is another question. This, especially for the short term and the medium term. But I do think that they're so well capitalized and institutionalized now, multi-cycle asset, that there is going to be a lot of this stuff that moves onto Sol as well, and they are taking the steps to fight back here. So I've loved a lot of the content that's come out for the community in Nuggets news around opportunity. Um, and we can talk more about that in a minute about places that you can gain yield, places that you can actually like park funds to be able to get, still that airdrop farming type sort of value. So you're not just looking for token price go up, but where can you park capital that's not in a bank that's going to actually go to work for you? And there's still lots of opportunities. And I think that Solana's always been very good for that type of stuff.
Yeah. And Jason's going to come on the show again soon to talk about more of those opportunities too.
He's a wizard with all of this. So yeah. So the Sui Foundation has done some pretty interesting research here. Now, Sui was the one who's like probably been the darling of this cycle as far as a new token. And they do think that they've come up with some pretty cool like quantum transition tech, but the caveat here that it doesn't work with either Ethereum or Bitcoin. So I don't know if they've intentionally done that because that's probably their major competitor, or they just couldn't technically figure it out. But I do think that there's going to be a narrative around like quantum resistance technology. And again, this episode today is probably turned more into a blockchain philosophy lesson rather than an investment opportunity lesson. But having these quantum proof like blockchains is going to be pretty important at some point. And I know Bitcoin and the Bitcoin community is making all sorts of strides around that. but it's something that I pay attention to as well. And it looks like the Sui's made some headway here.
Particularly with AI becoming more and more sort of sentient.
Yep.
If it can hack, I guess it will hack really eventually, or someone will use it too.
I don't have a slide for it here, but I know that like from speaking with some friends that work inside the industry, I know that even places like the Internet Computer, um, which has really struggled from like a token perspective and adoption perspective with the ICP token only, underperforming everything else. But they have released their caffeine.ai, like self-writing AI model now. So it's something that I've also been looking at playing around with the fact that you've got an AI that can just go and write code. And like the person who can do this first and do it well is, I think that's like again, it's scary, but it's a humanity accelerator because you don't even need to know how to code and you can go build applications and computer systems because there's an AI that writes it for you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the
that's,
the everything job taker as well.
yeah, exactly, the everything job taker. Um, Last one for everybody. I've been playing around here a little bit, like on hydration. So you can connect hydration just with like a MetaMask app. If we go to the homepage here, um, yeah. So hydration is a DEX. They're an app chain. They run their own chain, but they have some of the best yields right now on being an LP provider on both Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Aave, Link, Lido, any of these like ERC20 tokens. You can connect this just with like a MetaMask, even though it is like a Polkadot based platform, but they're fully EVM compatible as an app chain themselves. And they've got some insane yields going on right now. So if you're just an LP provider at Uniswap somewhere, or you've parked your money in a lend and borrow platform, they are offering like 30 to 40% APY bonuses on top of the normal fees. And so I do really like this project. I actually know the team personally. I've done a bit of work with them as far as like the marketing scene. I'm not paid by them or anything. I'm not part of this team, but I just do really like this project, and they do have some insane yields going on right now. So if anyone is sort of yield hunting, go have a look at hydration.net because they do have you can go park up, like if you park the whole Bitcoin, I think in their protocol right now, you make $100 a day. So
Nice,
yeah, just some stuff for people to go look at.
fantastic. Okay, Michael, any final thoughts of people at home? But yeah, it's been an interesting stage of the cycle now. People are sort of realizing the theses that we've been talking about of playing out. Start to think about taking some profits or having your plan. With the likes of Uptrade or have your OTC desk gears or your exit ramps and all that type of stuff, just getting your house in order in case we start to get those signs that we're near a top.
Yep. It is the time where we're going to probably see some fireworks. There's going to be huge gains to be made, but it's absolutely buyer beware right now. So if you are very, very new to crypto, I would tread with extreme caution right now. If you've been around the space and you've been in and out and you've been investing, kind of token levels and prices that you've been at before, like, these are some times where you can do very, very well. But if you're coming in just flat cold, like, be very careful at
Yeah.
the moment.
Fantastic, mate. We'll keep up all that great research and we'll chat to you again next week. Cheers, guys.